As some of you know, I've recently been given a Polycraft 300 Tuffy to review. So far, I absolutely love the boat, however, we do need to attach some accessories. I just want to say a huge thanks to Railblaza for providing the rod holder and mount for this video. In this film, I'm going to show you how to attach it to a hard solid boat, i.e. the Polycraft 300 Tuffy, or even a kayak. The things you are going to require are as follows: a Railblaza rod holder and mount, some well nuts, a drill, some silicone, and a Phillips screwdriver. Obviously, first things first, we need to get the damn thing out of the packaging, which was easier said than done with a blunt knife, but we did manage it in the end. Get rid of that. These we won't be needing today. And go on then, there we go. Get rid of that. That's our mount. Now this video isn't sponsored, but I have to say Railblaza stuff is absolutely top quality and it's the only thing I'd use. The little knob here undoes some crocodile teeth which will enable you to move the rod holder to your required position. The rod mount itself is pretty nifty. You've got locking clips which hold the holder in place. As you can see here, push it in, give it a lock. That will not go anywhere, that's fully solid locked in. The next thing you need to do is decide where you want to mount your rod holder. Because we anchor one of these from the front, I would prefer the rod holders at the back. So here's a little bit near the built-in rod holder, so I've decided to put it here. Best to take your time lining it up and make sure you are very happy as to where it is. Now once you're happy where your rod mount is, it's time to drill some holes. The well nuts here are a 10mm well nut. We do not want to use a 10mm drill bit. We actually want to use an 8mm. Now, I'm going to start drilling some pilot holes here with a 4mm drill bit. Now, the reason why I'm doing some pilot holes here is basically just to make sure that everything's in place. And if I make a slight error, it doesn't matter at this stage. So line your mount up, like so, and begin your drilling. Take your time with this, you don't need to rush. Now once you're through, I just make sure everything's lined up again, and then I'll do the one opposite. When that one's done, line the mount up again, and drill your other two holes. Once you're finished, it should look a little bit like this. Now at this point, I just take the mount and make sure that my holes are all pretty much in place, which they were. You're then going to want to take an 8mm drill bit and attach this to your drill. Now your well nuts may be a different size, so if they're 8mm, use a 6mm at this point. Always use 2mm under the recommended drill bit. Now in that clip, you would have seen me just line it up once again. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my 8mm holes. For some reason, the drill bit didn't really want to stick here, but we got it going in the end after a little bit of tightening. Now each hole I do, I bring the mount back over to make sure all the holes still line up. And whether I just need to move the drill bit, the 8mm drill bit, slightly to the left or the right, and then I just keep brushing away. But yeah, you will see me after every time putting the mount back on and just making sure all the holes line up nicely. Now at this point, I knew my 10mm well nuts wouldn't fit in that hole, but I just wanted to show you what I mean. So here I've got my well nut and I've got the nut. I'm just going to put it in 1 or 2 turns. And as you can see there's no way that that 10mm is getting in. However, when you put that well nut into that hole, you want it to be as snug as possible. And 10mm is just a little bit too big. So I'm going to take the drill bit, making sure it's lined up as always. And I'm going to enlarge the holes manually, just by rubbing the side, taking my time gently, increasing it bit by bit at a time. As you can see, we're not quite there yet. They need to be enlarged a little bit more. But I'd rather take my time and make sure it's a snug fit as possible, because if you do too big of a hole, there's no way of putting that plastic back. Once your hole is just about big enough, a couple of turns with the nut, and then just try and push it in place. As you can see, I'm struggling here, giving it a wedge, but there you go. It does go in, and it's a nice snug fit, because you can push down on that screw and it gets it in place. There you go, nice and snug. You can see here I've done two. I'm just going to bring that mount again, making sure that those holes are nicely lined up. So when I do the other two holes, I can still see whether I need to push the holes slightly to the left, slightly to the right to get them central. So here we've done all four. I'm just going to put the mount to make sure I'm happy. A bit late at this stage, but it's glad it's all good. Just going to get my bolts now and just make sure that they all go in before I start siliconing in the well nuts. Number two. Number three, have I done it straight? Yeah, I think so. There we go. And then we're just going to put in number four. We're not screwing them at this point, so I'm just making sure that I've lined it up nicely. Perfect. Once you've done that, you need to go and pull out all of those well nuts again. So in goes the screw, a couple of turns, not too many, and just wiggle it out and just pull all those well nuts out of those holes. The reason we're doing this is because what we want to do is add a little bit of silicone to those well nuts when we put them in. This just ensures a nice watertight seal. So once we've got all the well nuts out, it's time to grab some sealant. Ideally clear, because that makes it look a lot neater. Right, I've got some sealant here and I've got a well nut, and I'm just going to rub the outside of that well nut in that silicone. Once we've done that, we're just going to place it in the hole. You'll find it will go in a little bit easier as it's nicely lubed up. Here I'm just going to get my bolt, which does help push it in. I'm going to pop that in, give it a couple of screws, and then simply push it in place. Right, it's time to do the second one. So again, we're just putting a little bit of silicone around the outside of that well nut, and then just pop it in your hole. Now, it's worth noting here, these bolts will come out. The only reason I use them is to just push the well nut in place easily. And here's me just putting the last well nut in place. You can see the silicone all around those well nuts, and that's what's going to make it totally watertight. You can see in this clip, I've taken the bolts out and I'm going to put the mount over the top of my holes. Go ahead and place all your bolts into your well nuts. Now all you need is your Phillips screwdriver, and just tighten down until you get a little bit of bite. And once you've got that little bit of bite, stop and go on to the next one. As you tighten that bolt, the well nut expands inside, doing a nice tight seal. So now all four have gripped up, we're going to go and do them tight. Don't need to over tighten them, don't use an impact driver, because what you'll end up doing is ripping the well nut out of place and popping it back through. So just hand tight is absolutely fine. Tight enough so that when you touch that mount and you give it a wriggle, it doesn't move. So as you can see here, the well nuts have expanded nicely, as I'm pointing out there. And that mount is absolutely solid in place. It's not moving at all. Ideal. So that's basically your installation complete. I'm putting the rod holder here and giving it a good old wiggle, as you can see. Locking it up. Absolutely solid, doesn't go anywhere. Nice and tight, good job done. You've got the wheel here, which you can change the gradient of where the rod tip will sit. And there we have it. That's how to install a Railblaza rod holder with the HD mount, specifically on a Polycraft 300 Tuffy. Thank you, Railblaza.